Hey guys, Tarian here. It's been a while since I made a video. A lot of people have been asking me a lot of questions about Nax PvP as a Ret Paladin, and I've been kind of taking a break from WoW the last month and a half or so. Kind of just like raid logging and logging on for transmutes. I haven't been PvPing too much, but I'm still like keeping up with the meta and the game and everything, and I'm still practicing from time to time. The game's kind of slow right now. AQ patch has been kind of boring for me personally. I'm really looking forward to Nax patch though, and it's coming out in not too much longer, so I kind of wanted to make a little video breaking down itemization for Ret Paladin PvP. Now, disclaimer before I get into it, this specifically is covering Ret Reckoning 25 or 0.25.26. This is my preferred version of the build. The other alternative would be this right here. Without kings, you get an extra point in shield spec. It's really up to you. That's kings is mostly for dueling anyway, and 1v1ing. So it's up to you what you prefer. Same with Pursuit of Justice versus like 3-3 Vindication. It's up to you. Like, those are pretty much the two main interchangeable points. But for the most part, this is the spec right here I'll be talking about, because I said before in multiple videos that I believe that it's the best Paladin spec in the later phases of the game, with proper gear, especially in Nax patch, where you have so much gear and you can just, you know, shit on casters a lot. So I'll kind of break it down. I have 4 builds that I'm going to talk about here. The Nax anti-melee, Nax standard ret rec, standard ret rec with no rank 13 gear, or just no PvP gear in general, I guess, and then a stam stacking specific set. A couple things to note as like a general rule of thumb when it comes to itemizing, like as ret, I try to stay above like 20-21% crit. Preferably that's like, I wouldn't go any lower than 21 personally, but for a two-hander build I would never go below 21%, and I would try to stay at 6% hit. You only need 5%, but 6% is recommended, especially as a lot of other classes are getting more gear, so they're going to be dodging a lot more, and they'll have higher avoidance or whatnot, especially warriors and rogues as well, hunters. 6% is really nice to have. Another disclaimer, I'm not really gonna, I don't like using stat stick trinkets like Slayer's Crest and all that for when it comes to PvP builds, because if you're PvPing optimally, you're changing gear so much with you're changing your trinkets so much that, in my opinion, it's kind of hard to like put those in there. But the two main trinkets that I find myself using in most matchups are these two right here, my class trinket, and then this one right here, Burrow Shell. Burrow Shell you'll basically be using all the time and using on cooldown, and I'll talk about why later. So I'll start off here with the standard Ret Reckoning. This is the build right here, in my opinion. Of course, this is all my opinion. Something that should be pointed out is thick obsidian breastplate. Actually, I'll go from top to bottom on all of these and kind of talk about them. So we have the Field Marshal helm, the rank 13 helm. The reason I prefer the rank 13 helm over all these other helms is that it has lots of armor, good stats, 1% crit. The MP5 is actually really underrated for Ret Reckoning in my opinion. And the 2 set with the gloves, because the gloves have a lot of stamina on them as well, and 1% crit and lots of strength. This is like the most stamina you're going to be able to get out of a like a helm and glove combination. So the helm glove 2-piece, if you have the rank 13 gear, or if you have at least rank 13, will last you for the whole game pretty much, in my opinion. Next you have the Satis Collar, pretty good. It has lots of stam, a shit ton of stam, 1 crit, 20 attack power. It's really good. Swallows a Grand Crusader. This one's kind of tricky. I like this one just because it has some nice paladin specific stats and lots of armor. But it's honestly like kind of on par with like Drake Talon. Like, it's like slightly better, and Avengers as well. It's like on par with those two, I would say. But of the three, it's definitely the better of the three. It's got some extra armor. The int is nice. The P5 is nice. 1 crit's nice. Cloak of the Scourge, lots of stam. The hit is actually really good. And 30 attack power, obviously. Gonna move on to the chests. So the 2 chests I'm gonna talk about are Thick Obsidian Breastplate and oops, this one right here, Plated Abomination Ribcage. The nice thing about this chest is that you can take 1 hit out of somewhere else, so you can switch out your boots for like something else, or like rocket boots or something, because you'll be over hit. It has a lot of strength on it, a 1 crit, decent amount of stam. But the thing about that versus Thick Obsidian is that Thick Obsidian has decent amount of stam, lots of armor, lots of strength, but the proc is just insane, and especially with how much damage casters do in phase 6, you will pretty much want to have this thing on you at all times in case you get jumped by a caster. Obviously, if you know you're going to go into a matchup against like a warrior or a rogue or a hunter, you would really want to wear this. You'd want to wear this right here, or even like Avengers or rank 13 chest honestly is still good, because just the stam is really nice, but the 3-piece gives you the Hodge cooldown reduction. That chest is still really good in this phase. But generally speaking, because of how much damage casters do in next patch, especially warlocks, mages as well, and I would assume shamans, but you'll probably want to keep this on because this thing procs so much and it gives you so much health. So you might be noticing that my health is 5.6, like 5,651 HP, which is a lot, but for next patch, you know, you might think, oh, that might not be that much. It is a decent amount, but Paladins make up for their stamina, or their like lower health pool than warriors by, you know, things like we have eye for an eye, we can self-heal, we have Thick Obsidian to give us that extra HP barrier, which honestly, this is like a lot of health, extra health versus casters. It is so nice. And then Burrow Shell is basically an extra 900 HP. So if this thing's off cooldown, you can basically just add 900 health to whatever your current health is, and like it's basically a trinket that says 90 stam on it, which is really good. So the next thing I'm going to talk about, the bracers versus Guards of Vengeance. Pretty straightforward, lots of strength, decent amount of stam, 1 crit. Of course, we get the stam enchant over strength because we need the survivability as a paladin. Might of Menethil, undisputedly the best weapon in the game. Ashbringer is cool, but you lose so much stamina by using Ashbringer, and the damage in comparison is worse than Might of Menethil. Honestly, I would use Dark Edge of Insanity over Ashbringer for PvP at least. For PvE, I would use Ashbringer over it, but Dark Edge is probably still better than Dark Edge is better than Ashbringer for PvP in next patch. 100%, but Might of Menethil obviously going to be the best. So look at 46 stamina, like it's insane amount of stamina, 2 crit, decent amount of strength, like it's broken. Gloves again, you want the 2-piece martial. Girdle the Mentor, pretty straightforward, high armor, strength, stam, agi. It's like 2% crit, 1% hit for a belt. It's insane. Leg Plates of Carnage. So the legs, you can go with Leg Plates of Carnage. They are going to have more offensive stats, but less stamina than the Sentinel's Plate leg guards. These are the other option. They have about 100 more HP. Not nearly as much strength though, and they have, instead of 2 crit, they have 1 crit, 1 hit. So the nice thing about this is that you can take the hit out of somewhere else, like you can get different boots or something, but you're sacrificing some offensive stats. So it's really kind of up to you between these two. I just did Leg Plates of Carnage because it's just so much offensive stats and my health pool is already fine, but if you want to go a little tankier, you can get these. And these are honestly much easier to get because all you need is Warsong Exalted, and you have basically like on par BiS legs. So it's up to you, honestly, which you would rather. This is kind of, generally speaking, the Sentinel legs are pretty BiS, but Leg Plates of Carnage if you're trying to min-max. For the boots, you want Chromies or Fallen Hero. It's honestly up to you, Fallen Hero. The only difference is Fallen Hero has 3 more stam and 6 less agi than chromatic boots. So it's very minor difference between the two, extremely negligible. It really doesn't matter. Again, chromatic boots is just if you're very slightly min-maxing because it has more crit, but it doesn't really matter. There are some other boots. Let me see if I can find them. Hive Tunneler. They are leather, but the nice thing about these is that the armor is not going to matter if you're fighting casters, and they just have a colossal fuck ton of stamina on them. So these are actually a decent alternative to either of those, as you can't get Chromies or Fallen Hero. The Avengers boots are actually not bad either if you can't get either of these, so they're actually one of the better pieces of Avengers gear, in my opinion. But generally speaking, you want chromatic boots. They are the best. Rings. These two rings right here I like the most because of just how much stamina they have. The other alternative to the Archimetrios ring is the Karaji Ring of Fury. But this one's kind of harder to get. Less stamina, obviously, but an extra crit. Well, more crit, and then obviously 40 attack power is huge. But generally speaking, I prefer this ring because of the stamina on it. It's just so much stamina. And obviously, as a paladin, you need to be stacking as much stamina as possible. And then lastly, the Brutal Nosdorma ring for Exalted, the tank ring. It's insane. Lots of strength, even more stamina, and the defense is really good as well. Librum of Grace is honestly the best PvP Librum in the game, in my opinion, because the mana cost reduction on Cleanse. If you're not really stacking that much plus healing, Librum of Light isn't going to do much for you. I mean, it will do some if you're self-healing, but generally as Ret Reckoning, you're not going to be healing yourself that much because your heals aren't very mana efficient. So just making your Cleanse, which you will be using a lot more, and most of your mana, honestly, as a Ret Reckoning Paladin, is being spent on Cleanse and seals. So making your cleanses more mana efficient is really big. So you're gonna want to go with Librum of Grace. So enchants, it's pretty straightforward. ZG enchants, helm and leg, stam and defense is insane. Stamina enchant on the boots if you don't get Pursuit of Justice. Obviously, if you do get Pursuit of Justice, if you don't get Pursuit of Justice, then you obviously want move speed. Stamina over strength for bracers because you want that survivability. +4 stats to chest always. You can do greater all resistances for your cloak if you'd like, but 3 agis pretty nice as well. Dodge is okay. I wouldn't recommend it because giving warriors more opportunities to overpower is kind of whatever, and you already kind of shit on melee, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. So let's move on to the no rank 13 gear. So it's pretty much everything's the same except for the gloves. Gauntlets of Steadfast Determination I found to be the best Ret Reckoning PvP gloves. Just lots of stamina, lots of strength, lots of agi, lots of armor, and the defense is nice, obviously. So they're really good alternatives to the rank 12 gloves. And for the helm, I'm kind of torn between Avenger's Crown and Helmetless Rage, but I think if I had to choose between the two, I'd probably go with Avenger's Crown. It's slightly less stamina, but the other stats are more well-rounded, and it's got slightly more crit on it as well. So I would go with the Avenger's Crown. It's a little ugly, but and then the same obviously goes for everything else. So that's like the standard Ret Reckoning build for if you are rank 13 or if you're not. Now I'll kind of get into the other two builds, which is the Stam build and the anti-melee build. The Stam build is kind of gimmicky. It's kind of dumb. I mean, you sacrifice a lot of offensive stats. It's like you lose like 2% crit and like a lot of attack power, but you gain about like 300 to 400 more HP. We're running Pauldron's Unrelenting, which has insane amounts of stamina, and then Hive Tunneler boots, and that's pretty much it. That's really the only difference. Everything else is pretty straightforward. Oh yeah, and you would want to run the Warsong legs with this as well, because you'll lose the hit on this, and you'll need the extra stamp from this. But for the most part, these three builds, it's not that one, these three builds are pretty much the same. So I'll touch for a bit on the anti-melee build. This one's kind of gimmicky, it's kind of specific. This one's kind of just for like beating like warriors, rogues, I guess feral druids too. Hunters is actually pretty decent against as well. just anti-physical damage. This isn't specific to Ret Reckoning. You can actually probably do this just as, if not more effectively, as Deep Ret, but it's also really good as Ret Reckoning, especially if you're playing one-handed Ret Reckoning. And if you're playing like Deep Prot PvP, like this build is insane and you will never lose to a melee class. But with this build, I would definitely be recommending to go the double shield spec. You could even take something out of something else to put into shield spec if you wanted to like go super heavy like block and mitigation. But for this, we're basically just stacking like defense, stamina for the most part as well. See, we have way less attack power, way less crit, but our armor is insane. Look at that, 64.24 physical damage reduction, 370 defense. The block, 18.8% block is insane. Our parry is insane. We're not focused too much on dodge, but it's obviously really nice. Stylines, this is one of the few builds where you will want to use a static trinket, in my opinion. You want to run this trinket right here because it's just so good for anything shield related. And then Burrow's Shell, obviously. You have slightly less stamina, but it's made up for by the mitigation and defensive stats. I'll go over it for a second real quick. Helmet Domination is from AQ20. This one's really good. One parry, the defense, the stam, and everything's really good. Glue Smithing Collar. It's a lot of stam, 3% block, really good. Unrelenting defense, lots of stam, obviously. Armor too. Crypt Fiend Silk Cloak. Same thing, one hit, defense, lots of stam. If you're fighting melee, obviously you're not going to want thick obsidian, so you'll go with plated abomination ribcage. Dragobone wrist guards. These ones are actually kind of rare. Not a lot of people know about these. They're kind of like hidden tech, I guess you could say, like really hidden sleeper item. They're from world bosses, but they have decent stam. One parry. Parry is insane for PvP, especially for melee, and or mainly because of melee. Sorry. And it's really good for Ret Reckoning because the melee haste from parry is really, really good. Misplaced servo arm is going to be BiS because the speed and the top end is insane, and the proc is going to go through all their armor, so if you're fighting a warrior, that proc is just going to do great damage. The alternative would be probably the Grand Marshal one-hander. Just because of the stam and the speed, and it's got one crit, it's got attack power, it's really good for one-handed builds. One-handed builds. So the Grand Marshal one-hander is a great alternative to the servo arm, but servo arm is obviously BiS. Face of Death, the best shield in the game. You'd want it, but it's gonna be hard to get, so save your money for GDQP. And you want the shield spike, obviously. The stam is nice, but if you're fighting melee and blocking as much as you will be with this build, you want the reflect damage. Gauntlets the immovable, stam, strength, parry, pretty straightforward. Karaji belt, same thing, parry, lots of good stats, armor. Like Plates of Carnage, you could go with this, but you might need the stam from the Sentinel plate leg guards. So you could go with this as well. Also, where is it? You could go with the bloke leg plates if you just want more defense. But it's kind of the same as before. Leg plates of Carnage versus Sentinel plate leg guards. You could run something else on your boots if you get these, because you would be overhit. Chromatic boots, again, same thing with the boots. Doesn't really matter between these two. They're just so good. Same rings, lots of stam. Defense is even better here. And then, of course, same trinkets and whatnot. So that's pretty much everything for the Nax patch, Phase 6, Ret Reckoning, PvP itemization. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'll leave a link to my Discord. Feel free to ask anything. I'm not super active these days due to real life stuff, but I'm still working on WoW related things and trying to help push the class. Dracovis pretty much quit WoW for the most part. And I know Paladin still plays. He mostly does his Holy Reckoning things. So I'm kind of like the last of us right now. So I try to squeeze info out of him, but Dracovis pretty much stepped away from WoW for now, as far as I'm concerned, or aware. So I'm doing my best to help you guys out, and I hope this all makes sense. And I will talk to you guys later.